Nick Sandmann, the high school student who was thrown into the national spotlight when he and his classmates were confronted last month on the Lincoln Memorial, is fighting back in a big way. We'll take a look at his case and also see that his and Jussie Smollett's paint a really good picture of how a narrative, the certain narrative, drives reporting. Also, we'll take a look at a World War II famous photograph whose subject passed away this past week and how it translates into today's America. I'm Bobby Eberly. This is a 13-minute news hour.
God bless the United States of America.
Okay, there are two stories kind of going on right now that really paint a clear picture of how the media drives stories and how they report. The good old-fashioned reporting, good old-fashioned journalism is pretty much dead. Right now, a story has to fall into a certain narrative before the press will cover it. And that narrative falls into kind of two distinct categories. They're related, but one is the person anti-Trump? Okay, if the person is anti-Trump, if the subject is anti-Trump, can we portray this person as a victim? Because if there's an anti-Trump victim out there, the press will cover it, the left will cover it, the Democrats will jump all over it. So number one is to make an anti-Trump person look like a victim. That way there can be sympathy, and we can go lead to number two, which is promote stories that make pro-Trump supporters look racist, bigoted, homophobic, you name it, bad people. Make them look bad, make anti-Trump people look good. Those two narratives are what drives news reporting today in America. And we have two perfect examples of that. One I talked about on Wednesday is the Jussie Smollett case, which is just falling and crumbling before our eyes. There's more that just came out yesterday. I'll probably do a little follow-up from Monday's show. I'll do that on Friday, give you the latest on Jussie Smollett. But it shows how the media jumped all on board with someone that they thought was an anti-Trump victim. I mean, after all, he was supposedly accosted, kicked, and punched by pro-Trump people shouting, "This is MAGA country." The facts are coming out now, and everyone's taking a step back, but that didn't stop the media then. The other story is that we're going to cover today, and that's the Covington Catholic kids who, especially 16-year-old Nick Sandmann, who's basically at the heart of the story. As you recall, during the March for Life, January 18th, that school sent these kids on a field trip to go to the march. They went back to the Lincoln Memorial as a group to wait for their bus, and that's when they were harassed for close to 2 hours by Black Hebrew Israelites, people that were protesting in the Indigenous Peoples March, and it, of course, made big news. And no one seemed to care, whether it was the media, whether it was the left in general, celebrities, whether it was the Democrat politicians. No one seemed to care that these were kids, and no one seemed to care about actually getting into the facts. As you recall, the media was all over it. Tweets were going everywhere. Here's just one tweet, because the background, you pretty much know it, but this was Representative John Yarmuth. Take a look. "I'm calling for a total and complete shutdown of teenagers wearing MAGA hats until we can figure out what is going on. They have been poisoning young minds." And you have to wonder, what does that statement actually mean? The shutdown of teenagers wearing MAGA hats. So that means we are banning certain clothing. We are banning certain age groups from wearing certain clothing. I mean, talk about First Amendment. Doesn't that matter? If you're going after Trump, I guess it doesn't matter. But that was just one. And there was just a whole host of other incidents, other tweets, bad reporting. And so now Nicholas Sandmann and his family have hired attorneys, and they're going after the Washington Post in a big way. And I mean big as far as a $250 million lawsuit to go after these guys, because this is a 16-year-old kid whose name was dragged through the mud. In today's society, in today's social media world, when things get out there, you can't take it back. And it shows that reporters need to be even more careful of what they're doing, but they don't. If it's driven by anti-Trump politicians, anti-Trump or pro-Trump supporting politicians, pro-Trump people in the country, the deplorables, or in this case, kids, they're going to be the subject of attack, and it doesn't even matter. So let's dive into the lawsuit. The attorneys issued a statement yesterday, and here's what they had to say. This is attorneys Lynn Wood and Tom McMurdy. The suit against the Washington Post seeks $250 million in both compensatory and punitive damages. Lynn and Todd will continue to bring wrongdoers before the court to seek damages in compensation for the harm so many have done to the Sandmann family. This is only the beginning. And that's a key phrase there, because this is just the Washington Post. It's one media outlet after, among many, CNN, MSNBC, you name it, in print, on the web, on tweets, YouTube videos. There's a whole host of people that can wind up in the crosshairs of these lawsuits. So here's some of the summary. I went through the whole lawsuit yesterday afternoon, and here's just some of the items to show you what they're zeroing in on. Here's one. In a span of 3 days in January of this year, commencing on January 19th, the Post engaged in a modern-day form of McCarthyism by competing with CNN and NBC, among others, to claim leadership of a mainstream and social media mob of bullies which attacked, vilified, and threatened Nicholas Sandmann, an innocent secondary school child. So there it is. There's their summary. That's what they're pitching. And the lawsuit goes on and on to describe the investigation that happened, the statements from Sandmann, the video evidence that actually showed what happened. It's all laid out right there. Here's another excerpt from the lawsuit. The Post ignored basic journalistic standards because it wanted to advance its well-known and easily documented biased agenda against President Donald J. Trump, the president, by impugning individuals perceived to be supporters of the president. So see, that gets to the heart of the story right there. Because Sandmann and his classmates picked up, MAGA souvenir hats at the event or during that trip, they were the target. It's like, oh my gosh, we see all these red hats. They say, "Make America Great Again." This is our story. These kids have to be bad. They have to be racist. They have to be bigots. And if you sit there and watch the nearly 2-hour video, you show that the victims were these kids. The racial slurs that were thrown at them. One guy said that they were going to be future mass shooters. It's just what they endured while simply waiting for their bus is something that high school kids shouldn't have to go through. And that was the mild part compared to what they went through in the media. And no one expected that. No one deserved that. And yet that was how the media drove the story. So we'll keep on this, but I'm just really happy that Sandmann and his family and these attorneys are fighting the Washington Post. And it's going to take issues like this and actions like this to get the media to stop, to get the left to back down, because they will continue to push if there's no pushback. I mean, they don't debate anymore. They try and drown out people by calling them racist, calling them bigots, until those people no longer speak. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to implement a group thought mentality, which means if you don't think or act or speak in this approved, sanctioned way, you're out. These kids sitting there or standing there on the steps wearing MAGA hats, they're out. They do not fit the approved behavior of left-wing America, and thus they were the subjects of these attacks. And hopefully the Washington Post will have to pay big, and other media outlets will as well. And it shows the state of society. In our next story, it ends up being showing the state of society again. I was going to bring this up regardless of what you'll hear in a minute, because I've been watching a World War II documentary. I think it's a History Channel documentary. I've been watching it on Netflix, but it is so good. It's just, it's not a story. It's just the documentary. So it's going through Hitler's advances into Russia, and now they've moved to Japan, the attack on Pearl Harbor, and all the battles in the Pacific. That's kind of where I'm at now. But it's just so funny that I've been watching this, and on Sunday we had the passing of George Mendonça, who is, you might not recognize that name, but just take a look at this picture and you'll recognize him. He's the subject of the picture, and it's one of the most famous photographs of World War II. And it just, it sums up everything that was happening at that time. I mean, just joy and relief and celebration and victory, it all in one picture. And so he passed away on Sunday, 2 days short of his 96th birthday. And I just wanted to take a chance to remember him and remember all of those who fought so hard in World War II to basically secure freedom for us. It's something that when you capture it in film or photographs, it's just one of the best types of emotions to convey that hope for freedom or that joy and relief when you feel it. But I can't just stop there with the story, because it goes on. Take a look at this report from the Sarasota Police Department. They tweeted this out. At approximately 12:53 a.m., our officers were dispatched to the intersection of North Gulfstream Avenue and Bayfront Drive, reference to an unknown individual spray painting "Me Too" on the unconditional surrender statue. So that's the tweet. Take a look at these close-ups. This was a statue that commemorated the famous photograph. And a day after, or 2 days after this poor man passed away at nearly 96 years old, someone felt the need to spray #MeToo on it because he kissed this woman supposedly without her permission. And yet anyone who knows anything about the story knows that it's spur of the moment. She thought it was funny. It wasn't some romantic advance. It was just a show of celebration. She passed away a few years ago. The photographer passed away, and now George is gone and is at rest. But seriously, do we need to make this a #MeToo moment, one of the most iconic photos of World War II? Can't we just enjoy this man's life and what the whole entire generation of World War II veterans fought for? I mean, this is just, it just makes me sick that we live in this society where everything is a point of contention. Everything becomes political, and we can't enjoy just life. I mean, people just need to relax and not attack statues like this for no reason and attack people like a 16-year-old kid because he is counter to their agenda. It makes absolutely no sense, and we have to fight back at it. If lawsuits like this don't happen, if people don't continue to speak up and fight, we're just going to get steamrolled by the left, and that is something that, for the sake of the country, we can't allow to happen. So anyway, folks, that's today's show. I hope you enjoyed the photograph. I think we're going to get into some of that more because as you know, I love movies. I love photographs. I think I'm going to put a top 10 list together of most moving, stirring photographs. This one will definitely be on it. But please subscribe to the channel. Please tell your friends about it and tune in next time. I'm Bobby Eberly. This is a 13-minute news hour.